Cool. Now, I'm just going to continue from your question and what you were saying. First, I'd like to know what roles and what parts you guys are doing with your team. So I think that's a great starting point, but also what were those questions? Because this is the type of feedback we want. Like, hey, bring us stuff that like, all right, what's the feedback? What are the responses? What are the questions you're getting that you're not sure about? And let's discuss it. Like, I'm not saying we have the answer to everything, but there's not people here where I'd like to leave someone else's answer, and hopefully I can give my input as well. That's kind of the plan with all this. Because at the end of the day, I like your answer, but sometimes even the answer doesn't make sense.
Right.
You see what I'm
So
saying?
I understand. So the role that I'm looking to play in the team, that I will be playing, I should say, let me rephrase that, is acquisitions. So I am focusing more on the broker relations and deal sourcing. And the person that I connected with on Facebook through one of the Freedom Chasers, multiple Facebook group chats. It's great networking. I met her and she's fantastic. She is actually a real estate agent. She's been doing it for well over 10 years and on the residential side. And she's going to be the underwriter on the team because she's been doing a lot of underwriting on the residential side, and she's able to transition that over into the multifamily space. There are a lot of similarities, but there are also some differences which she's learned about, and she continually is practicing with her underwriting. So to get very, very familiar with the in-depth underwriting portion. And then another gentleman I met on the general partner call who I spoke with last week, and we had a follow-up call today. He's going to be joining our team in the asset management side. And he's also a key, we call it, not key partner, is principal, thank you. He's a key principal, so he can also help fund and sponsor the deals also for up to 12 million. So we've got him, and he's got a lot of contacts and connections too. So that was a great call. He actually has been giving me a lot of great feedback and guidance too, since he's got a bunch of deals under his belt, not in the multifamily space, but on residential. And he's got some commercial office space also deals that he's done too. So now he's moving into the multifamily space. As far as the questions that the broker asked me, I wish I could tell you. I was a bit nervous, so I didn't really retain the questions and I didn't write them down because I was just like, oh man, how do I respond to this? What do I say? So I tried to respond to the question without really answering it in a way that's going to come off like I have no idea what he was talking about. But he was asking very specific technical things like certain approaches. Are you going to not like syndication and private funding, not like that, those kind of questions. Although he did ask that, I knew how to answer that one. But are certain things are like, like percentage points and are you trying to structure the deal in this kind of deal structure or that kind of deal structure? And, so like those kind of things, those are more technical and in depth. I didn't know how to answer that. So that's why I gave that response. So every deal is different. Once we run the numbers and we see what's going to be the best approach, that's how we're going to then move forward with it. I can't say that we're going to go with a standardized approach for every single deal.
And so regarding those questions, and I get sometimes it is overwhelming. Regarding the percentages or the splits and whatever the case is, I think that's kind of like that you don't know what you don't know kind of thing. And this is why we say, like, guys, make the calls, get those questions thrown at you, because it's like trying to prepare for something where you don't know what, like, there's so many different questions that can be asked, and a conversation could go so many different ways. You can hear 100 different calls, and none of those will have that one question that you came across. So that's why if you guys ever do run into that or that happens, just write it down and obviously reach out or save it for this call, and we'd love to talk and go over it. They did ask a question that is important as you guys grow and as you guys start adding people on a team or creating a team, is one, understanding the role, and two, setting the expectation of what the GP percentages are going to look like, who's going to do what job. Actually, let me see if I have it here. Okay, I'm going to try to pull this up. and I think this will be good because a lot of new people, and I haven't shared this in a while. So while I'll look for that, I'll just continue. What I was gonna say is, yes, it's hard to really understand all the details and the splits and the X's and O's and what exactly goes into the deal itself when you're trying to split the GP percentage until you have a deal and you're in the weeds. But it is good to explore those options, talk about that stuff, and be like, hey, I'm doing X, Y, and Z. At least have a ballpark or assign percentages to the task at hand. For example, if someone brings the deal, okay, how much GP percent does that one task warrant? Because what if it's someone else? Maybe it's not you, it's someone else on the team. But what if you do something that someone else on the team was supposed to do, quote unquote? So I think it's important to also like label those out early on, because then it'll shorten that learning curve and make that, it's always gonna be a hard conversation the first time you're gonna deal with the team. So it makes that hard conversation a lot easier. Any questions? You kind of get what I'm saying with that?
I do.
Okay, cool. Quick question in the chat. Looking into North Carolina, plan on making connections, then to plan to spend several days in NC meeting and greeting. What do you recommend to accelerate the introduction? Here's the thing that makes this a lot more difficult than the single family space is it takes longer for a agent to get a, let's say, an off market or something. Let's say they made contact with the seller hypothetically today. It could take months before they actually get to the point of like, okay, we're ready to hit the market. So it is a very long game when you're investing into relationships with realtors, or if they're really good, you could get lucky and the timing works out and they have a bunch coming up. Both are options. One thing that's important is this kind of, I hate to say it like this, but this is the reality of it. You learn where to invest most of your time with realtors. Like there may be one you follow up with every week for 6 months and they give you 3 deals. There may be one you follow up with 3 times a week and they're giving you 7, 8 deals a month. You know, it's really important in that sense. Like, okay, who do I want to keep in touch with just to make sure I'm top of mind? But who do I want to make sure like this person gets deals? Like they find leads. They actually have off market. That's another thing. Anytime you receive an off market from a broker, vet it through checking the internet. It's gonna happen. Like they may not know that the property is listed, but you might find it somewhere else. So it's important to know as well and see like, hey, do the background research, make sure it's not something that if they're saying it's off market, something you could find online, because if you could find it online, a lot of people have already. So a way to accelerate really that connection, and I think face-to-face is always the best. I think that does help a lot. Also, here's actually something that recently I learned is, or I came to a realization is going, so most, especially in real estate, you have a lot of teams. And especially on the multifamily side, you may have, if someone's really good as a listing and seller's agent, they may have a buyer's agent that works under them. Their job is to hunt buyers.
So
But,
Ed, if you don't mind me asking, what is your role on your team?
so I'm big on asset management. That's, I have experience in that. I love the acquisition side as well. Underwriting, like I mentioned a couple calls, everyone kind of does, but I'll start off the initial for the most part. And then that is when it's important with underwriting. For example, like in areas, especially where I'm not from there, I'm actually not from anywhere I invest. So regardless, if someone on my team knows the area better than me, which most of the time the reality is that that's going to be the case. Hey, let's go over what our assumed costs are going to be, our expected costs, because every project is different. You know, if I have a 50 unit that needs a lot of work, on the rehab side, my expenses and my capital needed up front and my timelines and my vacancies are going to be a lot different than if it's an 80 unit that doesn't need as much rehab. So it's important to also talk with the person who's on the same page with and like on the same page of knowing what the area and cities like, and knowing what your costs will be given the ballpark. Heck, having someone co-star access just in general. I'm not saying rely on it, but there are some resources and information that'll help a lot with that. So I think that's important too. I hope that helped with that one. Real quick on the broker, the buyer's agent thing I was saying. And what I mean by that is, so you're gonna have a listing agent. Most of the time, especially in real estate, you want to be the listing agent. It's easier. Mario, you can attest to this. When you're the listing agent, buyers are chasing and running around trying to sell your home to their buyers. Less hands-on, easier, almost guaranteed check essentially, as long as you can convert the close. So most agents want to be a listing agent, and it's easier to manage more of it because you're not scrambling around chasing buyers. So usually they bring on a buyer's agent. The buyer's agent will go around hunting for new buyers for the seller or the listing they have coming up. Use those buyer's agents to your advantage. Hey, are you working on a team? Are you working under someone? What is their history like? It's like if you've ever heard, like, if you want to meet the celebrity, you don't go chase after the celebrity, you find their best friend, the person who's a little less known. And that's kind of the reality of it. The buyer's agent, especially in this space, is going to be a newer agent. Maybe they don't have all the answers that you need, but they have direct access to the person who has the answers and the resources that you will need in order to get that deal. What about going to the biggest multifamily conference to connect with brokers? That does work. It's just you're gonna have to be very tactical. Like, make sure you know, hey, I am going there with this target. This is what I want. I personally like those events more for connecting people with capital, but it never hurts. You always want to show your value. I was at a meetup last week in LA. And a lot of the things that they're talking about is how can you add value to the next person you meet? If you guys do the exact same thing, crazy coincidence, cool, move on to the next person. So I guess a big part of that is definitely, I'd never think it's a bad idea to go to these networking events, but be very strategic. That's a very like, okay, I'm in a sea full of people, let's see how this goes, and not your isolated market that you're focusing on. So in large part of that also does depend what your strategy is. Are you going in there like, I'll buy anywhere? Or are you going in there like, I'm looking for X, Y, and Z? Or are you going there looking for a specific deal? So it all really depends on that. Let me see if I can pull this up. Please work. Nice. Sweet. All right, cool. All right, cool. Okay, you guys can see this, right? Is my screen sharing?
It's just black. It's saying, for me, it's just black. It's just saying Edward Shamirian has started sharing screen, but it's black. I'm not seeing anything.
I'm seeing Monday work management, shared
Yeah,
due diligence.
Yeah, that's what you're supposed to.
I'm seeing that too.
Okay, now it just popped up for me.
Okay, perfect, cool, thanks. Sweet. All right, so this is something I got from a mentorship I was a part of. Essentially what it does is it's a little elaborate and a little like, it's a lot of stuff on here, but it does help with giving the idea of like, okay, what does that process look like? And this is a good way, like we're talking, like I was mentioning earlier, is knowing like who's doing what task and being able to assign it appropriately and being able to distinguish like, okay, what needs to be done and what is, how is that going to be tackled and what the timeline looks like. So this is all pre-contract. So this is just letter of intent, area evaluations. I'm not going to read each one, but like insurance photos, which are very specific. Walkthrough photos, uploading the information, preliminary figures and property management or project management. And then are we going to move forward with the LOI? Big ticket items are obviously very important. preliminary rehab, and then kind of making that final decision. So this is pre-contract, not as crazy, much more straightforward. This is the fun part. And essentially what it is, this is the part of the close of escrow, actually might even be the beginning of escrow. Yeah, purchase agreement. Yeah, so this is from due diligence all the way to refinance. Specific dates, attorney reviews.
Is this a template or did you build this out from scratch for yourself?
The template that I acquired from the mentorship I was a part of, they've done over like 6,000 units. And this is just something that they've shared with us. I'll bring that up more. I'll talk more about that later. So final price, seller edits, purchase agreement. Making sure the due diligence is checked off. This is very important because as soon as due diligence falls off, then it's like you're basically like, I'm in it. Like there's no backing out now, right? This is important. Lease audit, current rent roll audit, delinquency reports, inventory transfer is very important. Site inspection, sewage lines, XYZ. Rehab bid, this is a big one. Making sure that you get multiple project management or contractors out there getting that done. Lender proposal, that's a big one. Seller info or info from seller, city, building department, bids, and then it just continues down now to asset management, utility info. And this is just so there's a lot. The point of all this and why I'm showing it to you guys is like there's a lot of stuff that goes into this before you even close escrow. From open to close. It's important to understand, like, all right, who's doing what, how are we making sure this is all tackled appropriately in the timely manner. Because it takes a lot of time as well, that's for sure. And this is something that we brought up a while back ago, and maybe not a lot of you were here yet. It's the post LOI process is like getting the LOI accepted is the easiest part of this whole thing. Which sounds like hard when you haven't even like a lot of people haven't sent an LOI, but the LOI getting accepted is actually the easy part. This is the hard part. Also, it's important, like there's a lot of risk capital that goes into all this. It's important to make sure that you have that ready to go or know who's gonna handle that. You don't want to surprise, hey, we need $300,000 tomorrow. It's not a fun conversation. So any questions on like, I guess the process from like talking to a broker and how you kind of leverage it to this? I know we kind of got far away from the broker, but you guys kind of get the point of all this.
Hello?
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, is it possible for you to share this access to this template?
Let me get back to you guys on that one. I need to see if I can even extract the template first. But I'll talk about that later on. I'll play with it at that point.
Can I just ask you a quick question?
Yeah, please.
So in the multifamily mindset, that program that I'm in, they were recommending Asana. So what made you decide to go with Monday instead of Asana?
I didn't have to build a template. Template was built for me. It all literally took them seconds. They just uploaded it onto my profile. How they did it, I don't know. I just made them a owner of mine. I use Asana for my realtor, like brokerage stuff in LA, like locally, funny enough. I didn't know they use Asana. I use it for my stuff here. Multifamily stuff, I have this template.
Okay. Is there one, project management platform that you prefer more than the other? And, I'm just asking, so as I continue along this space, I can kind of see which one might be a little bit better or not, because right now I'm not using anything, simply because I just don't want to put out expenses and I don't have any revenue coming in yet. But I think at some point it's going to become integral for me to be using
So
this.
two things. One, because this is, I don't have this up and running yet. I'm not using this on a project yet. We're not using it for the pre-project stuff. We might use it for the deal I'm on right now. We might use it post-close. You get this free with two people on the account. So you don't even need to pay to go to, I haven't paid for Monday.com yet. And I've been using this and I have this and I could share it and like templates and stuff. Because it's very straightforward like this, it's easy to maneuver. So you don't even need to accrue a cost. I would recommend not to have a cost at all, to be fair.
Right.
Unless, even if it means just adding a couple people and it costs a couple bucks, that's a lot better than spending a bunch. So like here, about to reach your limitation, upgrade now. I'm sure it doesn't cost much. I just realized I'm not sharing my screen, but I'll click and I'll tell you what it costs. But I would just start getting this for free, and if you have the template, cool. If not, then it's not really needed.
So we can get Monday for free without having to pay for it, or that came with the program you registered for?
Like what I just showed you was on a free account.
Oh, okay.
So here, let me real quick just share this again, and then Bridge, I'll get to your question too. Let me share the screen again. Hopefully it loads faster than last time. Okay, so it says it's sharing on my end. So this is like, if you have a team of 5, it's like $8 a month per seat. That's $40. But you could get like 2 for free. So you don't even need to upgrade to 5 yet. I think if I play with this, 3 seats, 24. So it's like, it's a small cost, but reality, I still am not paying for this. And I have the account where it's like free and 2 people or whatever it is. And then obviously there's like all these crazy wacky versions of it depending on what you want to do. And then you check out the different, and I get nothing by promoting this, so you guys want to use it, go for it. If not, that's cool too. It's just I'm letting you know what I use just for transparency. But yeah, I wouldn't accrue a cost if you don't have to. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Go for it, Bridget.
Hi, Edward.
Hey,
How you doing today?
doing well. How are you?
Good, thank you. In fact, I didn't realize, but I have a connection that gave me your contact information. So offline, I'll make sure to connect. But yeah, I actually have a meeting with a broker tomorrow, just kind of coincidental. I met him in investing kind of networking, event. And I'm new to multifamily space. And so from a new person's perspective, any kind of thoughts about, obviously it's a one-on-one conversation, and it's actually a really casual conversation. So I'm expecting that it'll be just a chat, but from a perspective of being new, any ideas of, kind of the best way to kick off, sharing that my interest is in multifamily, and kind of where do we kind of take that conversation?
So are they a commercial broker?
I believe so. Yeah.
Where are you located?
I'm in Anaheim Hills and he's in Long Beach and Lakewood area.
Nice. Okay. Oh, wait, you're in my neighborhood.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nice. All right, cool. So the biggest thing with, I think the person-to-person connection is great, and I think it's the easiest. So here's the thing: is the most time-consuming? Yeah, obviously. It's not an email, it's not a text, it's not anything like that, but it could be the biggest reward because you are actually building a connection. And this is where it's really important to vet them. Think of it like this: the agent you're trying to connect with, and I know a lot of hesitation, or especially if you're new, you're like, oh, they may ask me something I don't know. You're interviewing them more than they're interviewing you.
Mm.
They don't get paid unless they get a closing, and they can't close unless they have a buyer. We are the buyers. So keep in mind, like, it's a two-way street. Like, we don't have to have all the answers. And we don't also have to be the ones to impress them the most. If we can close, look, I'm an agent in LA. I'm a licensed realtor in Los Angeles. I own a brokerage. To be honest, I will deal with difficult clients more likely because they still lead to a check.
Mhm.
But if a buyer doesn't like me, they're just not going to work with me. Or sellers, same thing. They're going to fire me before I get a chance to fire them. You get what I'm saying? Like, it's
Right. So the ball is more in our court.
Of course, but and I've said this a lot of times on these calls. The most important thing, especially from the buyer side, is credibility and can you close? How you get to the closing table, as the agent, I don't care. Just get there with the least amount of headaches in between, please, and thank you, because that nothing happens until that spot, until you're at the table, because nobody gets paid. And nobody makes money. And agents live off of closing deals. Bottom line, like, how the focus should always be on the conversation. This is what I'm looking for. This is what I need, so I can help you close the deal. Because if I can help them close a deal, that means that I'm involved and I'm getting the benefits of it. And it's really important to have an idea of, like, what are you looking for, and also where and what the plan is, because
Mhm.
the broader you are, and I know with me, I'm very broad with what I'm looking for. One, I live in Los Angeles and I'm not necessarily looking heavy here anymore like I was previously. But also it's hard to get into the bigger buildings here than it is in the East Coast or Sunbelt area. Also, a lot of investors don't like investing here, just the reality of it. So I'm like, okay, if I'm having trouble bringing money here, why don't I just go where money will follow, you know?
Yeah, and in fact, do brokers, much like agents, have the same restrictions of having an MLS? Like, for example, a certain area that they're working, or would they have out of state?
I don't have out of state.
Got it.
I can get out of state, but that's because I know people. Like you, I just know someone out of state, but no one can see California unless you have the MLS here. Some states you don't even have access to other counties in the same state unless you have like their MLS. It's just kind of weird, but especially keep in mind with commercial, the best deals happen offline. Single family, everything gets put on the MLS.
Mhm.
Multifamily, the best deals happen offline. The best deals, like all these big multifamily players that you'll see, majority, if not all the deals, are gonna happen before anyone else hears about it. Because that's how you get the best deal. Let's be fair. Like if you're adding too much competition and too many eyes onto a deal and it makes sense, someone is just gonna overpay you. So that's why it's important to target off market, but also knowing, like, that's why it's really important to vet the broker. It's like, for example, my broker, the deal we're in escrow in now, it's 120 units, it was marketed as 84. That's 36 units. Like that's another building. So everyone who's looking for 100 plus didn't see that. We found it, contacted them on it, and capitalized on the opportunity. And there's just less eyes on it. So it's really important to. So one question I'm gonna always ask: if like the deal's from Crexy, LoopNet, it's from a broker, it's from a realtor website, cool. How long has it been on the market?
Mhm.
Been on the market for a long time. What am I gonna see differently than everyone else has? Because think about it, a lot of people have underwritten the deal. If it's been on the market for 3 months, a lot of people have seen it. I'm not breaking news by any means. We're not the only people on a call right now on a Monday. There's a lot of people doing this now. There's a lot of people out there trying to find deals. There's a lot of people trying to buy, same way everyone here is. So unless there's new information that's not evident on the website or that like happened recently, or like a sudden price decrease that makes something work, whatever, something changed in their situation that all of a sudden that has some possibilities. Something's been there for 3 months. I'm not saying don't look at it, and I'm not saying ignore it, but keep in mind, like, okay, I need to see something different than the last 3 months people have been looking at this. And I think that's really important to think about too. Like, it's not just on there because people saw it, said it was a good deal, and then just ignored it.
Yeah, Felipe, I think I'm pronouncing it correctly. Felipe is asking like off market, but still through brokers. Is that pocket listing?
Yeah, pocket listing's a word for it. Off market listing, it's all really the same. Some people like to advertise it coming soon. Also, remember, the same way, like, okay, we're a community, we want to work together. We have friends that we work with in this industry. Other brokers want to work with brokers that they've closed or have a relationship with because they know they'll close too. The worst thing a listing agent can do is get a property into escrow or getting under contract with a buyer, whether there's another buyer's agent or not, and they don't close, because then you look dumb in front of the seller. Like, you didn't vet properly. Like, you can't go through emotion, you gotta have realistic expectations. Like, can this close and can the buyer get to that point? If I'm a listing agent, you're the buyer's agent, and I trust you, and I know we've done deals together. I know you're reputable. I know you don't bring any buyer to the, you don't just write an offer for any buyer. I'm gonna trust you, so I'm gonna send you my stuff beforehand, so I know that one, I want to work with you. Two, I know that if you do bring me someone, that we're gonna get the job done. The moral of the whole story, I feel like it's the moral of this call right now. It's nothing matters if we don't close. And at the end of the day, it falls on us. And that's a big part about it. Like, this Thursday morning, I'm flying out to Florida to start the inspection process on the 120 unit. I'm going to meet their broker. I'm going to meet their seller. I'm actually going to meet the rest of my team for the first time, which is kind of hilarious. But that's what we get for living in California. We're not close to stuff.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, that's good that you're going out there and meeting people. And it really comes down to, like, what are you looking for? And then how are you gonna get there? Like, there is a level of, and I'm a believer in fake it till you make it kind of thing. I'm not opposed to that. It's like, listen, if you think you can get it done, go for it. Where are you looking to buy specifically?
Well, I'm in Southern California. I do prefer North Carolina. And in fact, I've got a couple of like warm activity going on out there. But I'm, like I mentioned, I'm newer. So it's here in California, I'm leery, and maybe that's why I have yet to really execute and get very far, because of course, my reputation is very important. And I understand any one of us, our reputation is important. So we have to kind of tread, with some caution and ensure you're around the right people, you've got the right team. So, I mean, it's funny. I started my journey with multifamily, and then shiny syndrome, right? Kind of took me a little off track. So I'm coming right back to multifamily because that's really where I had started. My interest was in multifamily.
Nice, definitely. I think I know some people in North Carolina. I should know some people. I'm sure if I put a few feelers out.
There was a Daryl in sub 2. That's where I started. So he did text you about me. So yeah. Yeah, I'll wait until after your trip. It sounds like you've got we'll have to meet in person.
Yeah, definitely. Text me, we'll plan something. Yeah, so that's a big thing so here's the funny part. I obviously it's different because I'm on here twice a week and I talk to you guys every day and you guys see me. My market kind of picked me in a sense where it's like, hey, it's a bunch of people from Florida. I'm like, all right, I'm foolish at this point not to go to Florida. Like, I just know too many people there. We met amazing people there. We have a good team, and everything just fell into place. Like, all right, I guess I'm going to Florida. It is like, let's go. This 120 units in the city I didn't even hear of before this deal came to the table. I didn't know where this was. Still probably don't if you gave me a map, but that's fine. I'm bad at maps. The point is, like, know what this is why I always say, like, know what you're good at and make sure what you're good at will get you a seat at the table, because the rest kind of falls into place. And it makes it easy to talk to brokers. Like, hey, I focus on asset management and this. The rest of the stuff we have someone else that deals with. If you have any questions about acquisition side of things, let me get my KP or let me get someone else involved on my acquisition person, they'll help me out. And we'll be able to set up a call. Majority of the time, I rarely have a call with a broker or with a seller or whatever it is with just myself. I'm like, hey, let's get someone else on the phone. That's all have, because one, then I don't have to summarize the information, which I hate doing.
Yes.
And I'm terrible at taking notes for anyone that knows me. And I will forget stuff naturally. So I'm like, okay, just be on the call with me. Like, why am I playing? Like, even if it's a little difficult to plan at times and schedule, too bad, we'll figure it out. That's how I like to operate personally.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. Regurgitating it doesn't help.
Exactly. Because also think of it like this, like I said, everyone's gonna underwrite. Everyone's gonna have different questions. Everyone's gonna have a different perspective. Heck, everyone might even use a different underwriting tool. So if you're looking at it and you have some questions regarding X, Y, and Z, I personally might not have those same questions because it doesn't pertain to everything I'm looking at the moment. Why not just knock it out there instead of playing phone tag after? It just saves a lot more time that way. Like I've had people send me a deal, and this past weekend has been a little crazy, so I haven't recently, but I'll get on a broker call with any seller here, group text, I don't care, like with the seller, like I've done it before with a few people. It just makes it easier. And most of the time, if you guys have 2 cents or if you guys have questions, throw them in. Sometimes the other person doesn't even talk, which is cool too. It really just comes down to, hey, try it. Like, I'm a firm believer in the more you do it and you get on those calls and you hear how the conversation goes and you get a feel for it, the easier it just becomes to keep doing it. And I've told you guys this before, so if anyone that's heard this before, you're hearing it again, any new people, I've gotten punched in the stomach on some calls. I was like, oh, that was painful. Like, I just walked away, like, that was a terrible call. I got like roasted the entire time and it didn't work how I anticipated for it to. But I was like, I learned more from that call, it's just kind of, all right, I'll be more prepared next time. And you kind of go through the ringer and then eventually you kind of figure it out.
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes getting up and redoing it again and figuring out where you stumbled.
And I think this is a big part too, because in the single family space, especially, it's easy to scale and move quick. Like, you can close in 10 days. We're lucky to close in 3 months. It's, you underestimate what you can do. Sorry, you overestimate what you can do in a year, underestimate what you can do in 5. And it's happening to me. My first year, I was like, I want 500 units. And then I was like, okay, I want 100 or 250. And then I'm like, okay, I want 100. Like, okay, I want something. And now I'm like, oh my God, we might have 500. Like, where did this all come from? Yeah, Felipe, like we've said this on a lot of calls. That's a good one. Call markets you don't care about. Everyone calls LA. Agents here are evil, and smart asses.
North Carolina, I gotta say, they're much nicer. I've called direct to sellers and they're not nearly as bad as
we have
out here.
for that, unfortunately, just because being in SoCal, everyone's but whatever. But yeah, I know some agents in North Carolina too. Actually, ironically enough, the first deal I found and kind of got me into this space was from North Carolina. So that started this wacky journey. It was actually by accident, to be fair. So we just stumbled upon it and ended up here. And now there's 21 people on this call, so it's funny how that works out. I like North Carolina. I know people there. I know a lot of people that like that area and looking to invest. I do know you could get more bang for buck regarding price points, but that also just means you have to be careful with verifying rent and making sure that like your debt can be hard because you aren't bringing the same amount of income. So keep that in mind too.
Okay. Yep.
And I think that's a big thing too. Is like go ahead, Ronald.
No, I didn't mean to interrupt. I can ask you after you're done.
No, go for it. If you guys let me, I just keep rambling about random stuff. So I prefer when you.
No, I mean, you were responding to Bridget, so I didn't want to cut into that.
Oh, I was going to say lenders, but we've kind of talked about that a lot, where knowing those numbers helps a lot. And I think that's where having like assumable debt, key principles, knowing what your key principles can sign for, I think is a big part too. That kind of doesn't get talked enough. Like Ronald, perfect example. You mentioned earlier, what you can loan you can sign on, right? With your team.
Yeah,
Not
so
knowing you're
so
going-
that's the interesting thing. I'm not really too clear on the difference between a sponsor and a key principal.
there isn't a difference.
There is not, it's just the terms are used interchangeably for the exact same thing.
Yeah, not really, because you're sponsoring a loan, key principal, you're the key principal on the loan. Kind of, it's two and the same. It's used pretty interchangeably. I haven't yet to really hear a massive difference every time it's used. So most people say key principal just because it sounds better, I guess. But I've heard it used interchangeably.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So the person on my team who's going to be handling the asset management, he can be a key principal up to 12 million on
Same thing on
deals.
my team. Yeah, same structure. Usually that's the case because the person who is the key principal, either they want nothing to do with it and they really, really trust the operator. Like they know it, they've either worked before, like together before, or they just know who it is and they trust them enough. Like they're reputable. Or they usually do want to be on the asset management team. And guys, you guys are gonna run into this too. Like when you go to, and I'm not saying this in a mean way, I'm just saying it is what it is. When you go to any like any group that you're trying to, hey, I want to work with XYZ group that I found on Instagram or Facebook or whatever the heck, and you take them a deal, they're gonna want to manage it because if they're raising majority of the capital, they want their name on it. Their capital investors want them to manage it. Also, it's more beneficial for them to have the majority GP for obvious reasons. They're gonna want usually 51% at least. Keep that in
Wow.
mind. Oh, 100%. 100%. Like
I can understand take 50%, leave the other 50 to be divided by others, but 49 for the rest is like,
that's if you're lucky. I'm gonna be upfront. That's if you're lucky, you'll get that. So this is why guys, when I say this, I'm speaking from experience. It's very important to know what you want to role you want to play, and does that role get me a seat at the table, and what percentage does it get me? Can I stand on what I'm willing to do to get me the GP percentage that I expect? Because the last thing you want is to get to that fun conversation, realize you have no leverage, and be like, oh crap.
can you get pushed out of the deal at that point and they just take over and run with it?
You may not get pushed out, but you may be surprised how little equity you get. And yeah, maybe the first one you're like, okay, it's a learning experience, but think about how hard it is to get that first one.
That's true. You're doing, I think, most of the work on the first one, because then after that, you probably would have established some contacts there for it.
So here's the thing. Remember when I said the easy part's getting the LOI accepted?
Mhm.
That's the point. Now the hard part starts. And once the hard part starts, people have built a reputation or have been through the process enough where I can do this all day. But for someone new, it's really not knowing where to start and not knowing what you don't know, which I say a lot because it's true. Like that list in that Monday.com template I showed was just scratching the surface. Like that was like line items, but now each of those has like a bunch of other things that go with it. Like lease reviews and due diligence and XYZ, like and again, the capital. Let me, so Ronald, let me ask you. If we're working on a deal and you're putting up the risk capital, you're expecting something, right?
Yeah.
I told you you need risk 200,000. We don't even know if we're going to close yet. This is just to EMD inspections, writing up the PSA, which is another cost.
Is that earnest money? Is that what that's called?
EMD is earnest money. No, earnest money is one of the many things. That's let's say 1%. Then you have PSA, which is a lawyer fees. You have setting up the PPM. You have setting up or paying for inspections. Our sewage inspections are $4,000.
What does PPM stand for?
I always forget the acronym, but it's basically what the GP entity is set up as.
Oh, okay.
Placement memorandum.
Say that again?
Private placement memorandum?
Yes.
There you go.
Okay. I still have to learn all of this stuff.
Yeah, I just always said PPM and I keep forgetting what the acronym is. So thank you. And essentially what it is like if 5 of us are on a GP team, you got to know who has what entity and how much and what company name you're holding it under and how your interest is in the deal and whatnot. That all
So,
costs money.
so if, let's just say I have my own LLC,
Mhm.
you have your own LLC, Bridget has her own LLCs, you know, so on and so forth. We have all our LLCs. We're all working together as a team on a deal, different roles, and we are able to successfully close on this property. All 5 of us have our own LLCs. So how does that work? Do we now form a one unified LLC, like with all of us in that, our LLCs in it? Like, how does that work?
That's the PPM is. The PPM is we put each of our LLCs as ownership of this percentage. Now, I would put the person like that specific real like property, or if it's to that portfolio, whatever it is, 120 units, let's call it. That has its own LLC as well, because our LLC is tied to the PPM, but we don't want to ever have multiple properties under the same LLC. No chance. Even if it's the same people working on it, it doesn't matter. You want to separate and limit your risk as much as possible. But like my LLC would own the percentage of the GP share I have of that in the PPM. So
Oh,
let's say I own 10%, we each own 10%, or 20%, we're 5 people. It's easy numbers, but it's never going to work out like that. But 20% each way. So that means each of our LLCs own 20% of that 100%.
oh, okay, got it. The LLC is like that investor. It's not you specific, it's your LLC that's being listed on that.
Yeah, you wouldn't want to put your name on there.
Gotcha. And private placement memorandum, what exactly is that?
It's essentially just a breakdown of who owns what percentage under what name.
Oh, that's it?
So for me, like I did the whole holding company that owns the LLC. I own the holding company. So I have a layer, like I have a gap between me and my LLC in regards to ownership, just for more security. So I
Okay,
can have multiple LLCs under my holding company, and I own the holding company.
gotcha. Okay, great. And you had said that you have a lot of contacts all over the country. So would you be able to refer some brokers in the Atlanta, Georgia, and Knoxville, Tennessee markets to that? Those are the 2 markets I'm focusing on. I'd appreciate that, because I'm trying to, you know, where I'm focusing, like I said, is the acquisition side. So it's the broker relations and deal sourcing. So I have to try to get deals in to then start turning them in down the line to my team. So being able to reach out to people who have those connections would be valuable for me.
I'll see I'll see what's out there and who I have in those areas, and I'll let you know. I look in Atlanta too, just because I know a lot of people there.
Mhm.
But yeah, we'll keep in touch. Shoot me a text.
Thanks. By the way, on that call that I was talking about earlier today, I used you. Remember last week's call when he was asking about experience, he said, have you closed any deals yet? I actually said, well, I'm working with my partners in my team, one of whom just closed a 120 unit deal down in the Florida Panhandle. So I used exactly what you told me to say.
Do it. I do not care.
So thank you for that.
If they want to call me, let them call me. I personally don't care. Just give me a heads up so I know what the hell they're talking about.
Okay, no problem. But thanks for that.
Like talk about something. I'm like, who are you? Like, what are you talking about? So yeah, that's cool. Use it. Heck yeah.
Appreciate it. It was very helpful. Thank you.
100%. Go for it, feedback.
Hey, good seeing you again, Ed.
Yeah, likewise. Thank you.
Yeah, so just on what we are just talking about, I guess I want to better understand why, because I know I'm newer to multifamily, but I know, for example, PACE, puts a bunch of different properties into one LLC. Why again, do you just put one property into each LLC in the multifamily space?
One LLC to say that last word again, sorry.
Yeah, from what I understood, you just when you establish an LLC to buy a property, you only put that one property in, you have one LLC and one property. You don't have multiple properties underneath one LLC, right?
Yes, 100%. Especially when you're doing syndication. Like if I own it myself and it's like one or two, okay, maybe I won't care. But when it's it's a property this size. Like we're not looking at small property or low value property. You don't want something to happen on one property to allow your other properties to be a target because they share ownership. And you never know. Like, okay, the home you live in, right? If you own multiple homes, if something happens to one, you don't want them to come after your personal home,
Right.
right? Same idea. Like if something happens on one property, I wouldn't want it to affect another, especially because your percentages are going to be different. The people may be different. Like, for example, my Florida deal, I can guarantee you there's one person on this deal that's not going to be on future deals. That's not because we don't want to work with them. They're 1031. Like they're only on this deal because they're putting the amount of money that they're putting. They're not going to be on every deal going forward. So we need to restructure the entire entity.
Right.
It changes so much. You see,
So it's more so for syndication purposes because everything just gets more complicated if you do it, you know, the way that you would do it for a single family.
I would always do it for every home I'd put under a different entity, 100%. Building, multifamily, single family, I would do every single one. It's not worth it.
What about a series LLC?
Hey, what?
Have you heard of a series LLC?
What series LLC?
I don't really know exactly. I just know that I wouldn't even be able to speak you know, with any confidence about it, but I know it's a way to I guess circumvent that issue.
So with regards to it, and also remember, like for example, okay, here's making it a little more complicated, but this Florida deal, we're acquiring the LLC it's already under. We're not creating a new one. We're just changing the operators under their existing LLC, which is
Right.
how we're saving a lot of money on taxes. But we still have to create our own PPM because we're our own entity. That's between us.
Right.
So there is a few pieces involved, but you kind of get the gist of it with, that's why, heck, I'm gonna be honest, this is why we have these down the issues. Like you don't want to screw up this part of the process.
Yeah. Especially if you're bringing investors in.
Yeah. So for example, the person that we brought on that's doing the 1031 wants a GP percentage. And I was like, how much are they bringing? They told me the number. I'm like, okay, fine. I'm not gonna argue, you win. So they get a GP percentage, but they're not gonna have that money available until we sell or refinance. So they're not gonna be on the next deal we do together.
Right.
Just naturally, like they're not bringing that money again, you know?
I think in a nutshell, Felipe, the LLC is a company. So
Sorry?
you just are the owner of the company. If that LLC owns, say like what Pace might do with the multiple houses, he might have 10 houses that are worth, 100 or 200,000. That's all in an LLC. But that LLC never owns more than say $1 million or $2 million worth of property
There you
at a
go.
time. His insurance claim will likely have a higher insurance deductible and will pay the claim if somebody's suing him. But when you have a multifamily property, if you've got multifamily properties in one LLC and you get sued by one tenant, you could lose all your portfolio.
Exactly. That's why it's not worth the risk. Think about it. 120 units means that's 120 minimum people. Anything happens, it's not worth the risk.
Clear. Appreciate it.
For sure. For sure.
That's why it's called limited liability
There you go.
company.
Yep. Thanks for that input. Absolutely. And I had a feeling there's like a dollar amount thing, but you bring up a good point. Like if one multifamily, like Pace will probably buy a house for 200, 300,000 or EMDs that much. Like it's a little bit of a different number, you know? I don't know when it became an hour mark at this point. Yeah, 100% Mario, for sure. Any other questions before? I can't believe it's already 6 o'clock. That's wild. Any other questions? Anyone else want to add anything? Before we hop off?
I'm trying to get in touch with Ronald Sohan.
Sohan.
Sohan. Hey, Ronald, this is Kennedy from Atlanta.
Hi, Kennedy.
All right, great.
Here, I'll share my contact info with you right now.
Can you guys
Okay,
take
great.
this- Yeah, can you guys connect offline, please? Let me do this real quick. Hold on. So I'm gonna call night. Thank you guys for coming.